mall.
The mall, honey. This is a prom. Think elegant. Think 72nd and Madison. I know the perfect boutique.
Oh, Angela, you're the best. Oh. You're the best too, Dad. And don't worry, I promise to be home by dawn.
Okay, sweetheart. Dawn?
Dad, we'll be at the bowling alley. Everybody stays out there prom night.
Well, I bet Angela didn't.
I bet she did.
No. You? The whole night? What'd your mother say? Never mind.
Hello. Welcome back to...
Ayo. Oh, wait. Were you going to do it?
I was pretending I was going to do it to see if it tripped you up because we hadn't discussed it.
Oh, okay.
The Who's the Boss podcast. I'm Tori.
I'm Kevin.
And we are here to rewatch and discuss every single episode of Who's the Boss. So this may be our last episode for a little bit. Kevin and I are both going to be traveling a bit with the kids, and we're not going to be back in the same location until the beginning of July.
Yeah,
what you're listening to now, we've recorded a few weeks ago. And so I think we're going to have to take like 2 weeks off.
So if anything crazy happened, we're not reacting to it.
That's why.
Like if they canceled the reboot or a bunch of
just
reboot news came out, we don't know.
But the next episode we cover is Sleep Talk, Sweet Talk, which is a very good one. And I was excited that we were able to get this one in before we leave because this is another favorite of mine. So today we're covering Season 4, Episode 22. The title is Prom Night II. And you're like, where? There was no Prom Night 1. But
I know, that's confused me.
I know, but you'll figure it out once you watch the episode.
Yeah.
It first aired on Tuesday, May 3rd, 1988. And the TV Guide summary says, Angela goes overboard for Sam and Jesse's prom. And Tony learns the secret behind his boss's behavior.
Oh, boy.
I know that sounds a little more scandalous than it is.
It does.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. A little more than it is.
What do you have?
As soon as Angela hears that Samantha will go to prom with Jesse, she relives a childhood trauma and does her best to make prom as perfect as possible for Samantha. Sam, however, is fed up with all the preparations and calls the prom off.
Aww.
And then there's Jesse's sensible cool clashes with Sam's fashionable ideal of prom. But it's Angela who makes such a big deal of it after having taken Sam shopping from an ideal, I think it's supposed to be for an ideal dress.
Probably. With
her credit card and taste that Sam refuses to go at all.
To the prom?
I guess.
Okay.
Today's usual mending challenge is complicated but also clarified when Mona betrays Angela's top secret prom trauma.
Everybody keeps calling it trauma. I mean,
I
I guess it was a traumatic experience for Angela. Okay, this episode was written by Diana Ayers and Susan Sebastian. So this is Diana Ayers' only episode, and
Really?
it is also Susan Sebastian's only episode.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting. Two writers.
Yeah, it must be a writing team.
Yeah.
And they probably either, proposed this and it was accepted, or they were contracted out for one episode.
Interesting.
If a writer ever wants to talk to us, I would love to know some of these as to how these got written. Okay.
They don't want to talk to us.
No, that's okay. So, all right. When this episode opens, one of the cutest things ever happens. So Tony is dusting. He's trying to dust above. He's near the fireplace where that little table is against the stairwell. And he's trying to dust high up where the pictures are.
Right.
Jonathan comes in. He's like, hey, Tony. And Tony's like, oh, hey, Jonathan. Remember when we used to play Acrobat?
Says John.
Oh,
Hi,
does
John.
he?
Yeah.
Aw, that's cute. Remember when we used to play Acrobat? Let's do that again. And Jonathan's like, why?
Right.
He says, just for old time's sake. So he's like, oh, okay. So Jonathan goes running over and he does this little gymnastics move or whatever up onto Tony's shoulders. So do you think they had to practice this? I mean, I'm sure.
Maybe. I mean, I feel my thought, and it's completely just me making things up, that it looks like something that maybe they probably used to do on set, off camera, just messing around,
That's
and then
cute.
they finally
Right.
incorporated it into the show.
Yeah, because he used to have the kids tap dance with him every single show for the audience. They would do a little tap dance. And at some point, that tap dance does make it onto the show.
Ah.
So, yeah, and plus, I don't have any proof of this, but I think that Danny Pintauro must have been a gymnast as a kid, because in the episode where Jonathan does gymnastics, he's really good at it.
Right.
And
That was Tony's 15 minutes of training in the garage.
Yeah. I know. It's suddenly the kid's a prodigy. Yeah, so I just thought this was really cute and pretty big stunt, like for him to go out. It's like a little cheerleading thing. But okay, then he says, I forgot how much fun that was. Tony's like, yeah, all right, here, get to work. And he hands him the feather duster. So now Jonathan can reach where Tony couldn't.
Ah, that's what that was about.
But then Angela screams from the kitchen. This is insane. And so Tony Danza has almost decapitated these kids twice. Like, doesn't he do this with Alyssa Milano? At one point, he has her up on his shoulders coming through the doorway after, like, she won a basketball game or something, I think, and we were nervous for her head.
Oh, yeah.
And now here, I'm nervous for Danny Pintaro's head.
I know.
So when he hears Angela scream, he's like, that's Angela! And he goes running for the kitchen, and Jonathan's like, Tony!
I know.
Like, please do not forget I'm on top of you. But it's perfectly coordinated, and Danny, like, leans back right as they clear the doorway, and they both fit through the doorway. It's pretty impressive.
It is, actually. In
the kitchen, Samantha and Angela are hugging. So Jonathan and Tony come busting through the door, and he pulls Jonathan down, and he's like, that was close. And then Tony just says, get out of here, and pushes him out the door.
You almost smashed his face, and then you just tell him to leave.
So he says to Angela and Samantha, like, what is happening? And Sam says, I'm going to Jesse's prom. So that was an excited squeal.
Oh.
Yes, they were very happy because she's going to prom. You can already tell Angela's getting very excited here. She's like, doesn't that just give you the chills? Tony's like, yeah, I got goosebumps.
Yeah.
But he says, wait a minute, I thought Jesse had to work on Sunday. But Sam says he did, but he knew how important it was to me, so he's taking that. He switched with someone else to get the night off. He's going to be working in the frozen food section instead of produce. Now, here are the Z Cavaricci genes that we were talking about. You said, I wonder if we'll see Sam in some, and I said, I think we already have. I was confused. I had already watched this episode, and I think I was thinking that these were the ones we had already seen. But I don't think we've seen these before. But these are some classic, the top folds down like a collar.
That was the look. The
Yep.
late 80s, early 90s. I know they were really big in the early 90s. Must have started somewhat in the later 80s. I don't remember.
I know, like, maybe because this is West Coast, like, maybe that's why she's a little ahead.
I mean,
I
I'm
don't
sure.
remember Z Cap reaching until a little later. But
I
was pretty
remember
young.
in high school, in 90, 91.
Yeah, okay. So
90 for
we're
sure.
88 here.
So this,
Yeah, we're getting there. And the collar, the collar on the pants are actually a different color, and the little pockets are a different color. But again, I could totally see our oldest daughter wanting these and wearing these now.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like it's only a matter of time before these come back if they haven't already, and she just doesn't know about it yet.
And neither do we.
They joke about how Jesse's going to have to spend some time with Mama Celeste in the frozen food section, which I thought was funny because wasn't that a big frozen pizza brand?
Oh, yeah, it is.
I think it still is, right?
Yeah, Celeste.
I think I used to love those.
Celeste pizzas, right?
Now I want Mama Celeste pizza.
Oh, boy.
Angela says, we only have 3 days to get you a great dress. And then Tony's like, wait a minute. She's got a dress, the one I bought for Cousin Gina's wedding. But Angela says, Tony, people have seen her in that dress. Okay, wait a minute. Why didn't we get the episode with Cousin Gina's wedding?
I don't know.
Did the whole family go? Because it seems like Angela knows about this wedding and knows about the dress.
And the dress was not that old.
Then who is Cousin Gina? I don't even think...
Just throwing names out there and things that didn't happen.
Samantha says, Dad, it's hopelessly out of style. That was late fall 87, and now we're into spring of 88. And Tony says, I'm still wearing a suit I bought in late summer 72. That is very Tony.
I believe it.
Yes, me too. So Angela and Samantha are really bonding here over Tony not knowing what he's talking about, because Sam's like, this is such a simple concept. Why can't men grasp it? And then Angela sits him down and she's like, here's what you need to know. Samantha's a sophomore and she's been invited to a junior prom. In the teenage vernacular, we're talking major. Mm-hmm. And Sam's like, listen to her, Dad. She knows what she's talking about. Angela says, since it's my idea, please let me take the honor of buying her a dress. And those are words that Tony never wants to hear. So he's like, no, I'm buying the dress. And she's like, please, it would mean so much to me. And he's like, oh, all right, fine. But he says, your wedding dress is on me. And then Angela looks at Samantha and says, we'll talk. That's cute. Like Angela would pay for her wedding dress because that's something that your family does. Very sweet. Spoiler alert, Sam will get married and Angela's not going to buy her the dress.
I know. That's what the first thing I asked you when we were watching the episode. I'm like, does she actually buy her the dress?
No, Sam's wedding's kind of a big disappointment all around.
Yeah, that's the impression I'm getting.
Yeah, so Sam asks Angela, when are we hitting the mall? And Angela's like, no. This is your prom. Like, we don't want to go to the mall. We want to go to the boutiques 72nd and Madison. So she's thinking of like these fancy little dress boutiques. But Sam's into that. She's like, okay, all right. And she hugs Angela and says, you're the best. And then Tony's like, me, in the background. She says, you're the best too, Dad. And she gives him a big hug. And she says, don't worry, I'll be home by dawn. And he says, dawn? And she's like, yeah, I mean, we're just going to be at the bowling alley. Everyone stays out all night on their prom. Ugh. And Tony's like, I bet Angela didn't. And then Angela says, I bet she did. So are we going to find out later that Angela's lying here?
I don't know.
Yeah. So
maybe after she saw...
after the traumatic Bigelow experience, she just stayed out all night.
Maybe.
He's like, the whole night? And she's like, yep. And he said, what did your mother say? Never mind. Because he knows what her mother said.
Right. Come on.
Okay, so now we're to a couple days later. They're buying... Okay, so I think this is actually the day of prom, which I feel like is cutting it close for buying a dress.
Yeah, a little bit.
So they had 3 days, and now it must be Saturday, and they're buying the dress. So they show up at this boutique. This appears to be the first boutique they've been to. And as soon as they walk in, Samantha notices kind of a stylish prom dress hanging on a mannequin.
Yeah.
And it's like really short and ruffled. And she's like, oh man, look at that dress.
It is kind of stylish.
It is. I think it's pretty cute.
Yeah, for this time too.
Yes. And I'm going to get to this. And I don't know if anyone else had this experience with the dresses, but I'll get to it in a second. So Angela immediately is like, oh yeah, I mean, it's nice, but it's not your dress. So I know the perfect dress is here. I can feel it in my credit card. So they start looking around. A lady comes up to them and asks him, is this a cotillion, a bar mitzvah? And Angela says, no, it's a prom. And the woman also says wedding. Like prom was the last thing on her mind.
Right, right.
But you would think it's prom season. That's probably why they would have a lot of people in there.
Of course.
She asks Sam and Angela, I keep tripping on that word, if they are thinking about something pink or blue. And something catches Samantha's eye, and she says, or black. And she runs over and picks up a dress and holds it out. And she's like, isn't this beautiful? And the lady's like, yes, it's stunning. It's our last one. And so Sam's like, oh, it's the last one. She's kind of holding it close to herself. And the lady says it was originally designed for Cornelia Guest but then Caroline Kennedy fell in love with it until she found out that Chastity Bono had one just like it. So apparently this is a very popular dress. Now the Chastity Bono reference, everyone would probably know that Chastity Bono is Chaz Bono.
Right.
Now here's kind of the thing that I have with this dress is I think when I first saw this episode as a kid, I didn't like this dress because I was probably like 11 going on 12. And so my idea of a prom dress was way more along the lines of what Angela's idea of a prom dress is and not Samantha's. But now as an adult watching this episode, I love this dress. And I think that Angela's pick is horrible. But when my kids watched this episode with us, they did not like this dress at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so maybe it's just like the age range. Like at that age, you're still kind of into the poofiness.
Yeah, maybe.
And then since she was a teenager here, she wanted to look a little more not traditional. Sam's like, did you hear that? Like, this is it. This is the perfect dress. But Angela's like, no, I think we're going to keep looking. And she takes it out of her hand and she hangs it up on the rack. So then a lady goes over and gets a more traditional dress, which is kind of similar to something Cinderella might wear. It's like a powder blue. It's really poofy sleeves, like not ruffled, but kind of a bunched skirt. And Angela's like, isn't this adorable? And then Sam says, who wanted that one? Martha Washington, who was George Washington's wife, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that just means it looks super old. And Angela's like, oh, but the lady's like, actually, Princess Stephanie had her eye on it. So Angela says, look, Samantha, this is fit for a princess.
Fit for a princess.
So Angela says, I think we really found our dress. But Sam wanders back over to the black one and is like, I don't know. I mean, there's just really something about this dress that I love. And as she's going up to it again, there is another couple, another mother and daughter here standing next to it. And the girl looks at Sam and looks at Angela and says, she's right. Black is out and those bows. And she's kind of giving a look.
This little
at the
sneaky,
dress. Yes.
you know what.
I did not realize who this actress is until today. Her name is Carla Gugino. Now, I recognize her from The Haunting of Hill House, and then she's also in The Haunting of Blythe Manor, which I haven't watched yet on Netflix.
Okay.
But if you watched Manhunt, which we did,
Oh, yeah.
she is the reporter.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I can't remember what her...
I can see it now.
Yes. So she started... This is her first acting credit. Who's the Boss was her very first guest spot.
Oh, that's neat.
Then in 1989, she was in Troop Beverly Hills, and I think that kind of put her a little more in the spotlight. Oh. And then she did some work on Falcon Crest, lots of stuff during the 80s. But yeah, she's really worked consistently. She was on Spin City also. Chicago Hope. And what was her name in... Oh, she was on Entourage, so I'm sure you saw her on that.
Oh, okay.
She was in Californication, which I do remember her from that. So yeah, she's steadily worked. And she's like 2 years older, I think, or 1 year older than Samantha here. Manhunt, she plays Kathy Scruggs. That was the reporter lady. And she is also, I believe, in Tick, Tick, Boom, which is also with Judith Light. I don't know if they worked together. And I can't remember if she and Judith Light had scenes together in Manhunt. But I think they did. Yes, I think Kathy Scruggs goes to his mother's workplace, and she and Judith Light played his mother. So yeah, so that's just funny. Like, she worked with her when she was 16 or 17, whatever she is, and then worked with her again
yeah, that's
just like last year. So yeah, so she's telling her, like, you don't want this dress. The bows are not good. And Angela's like, listen to her. So Samantha wanders back over to the blue dress, and she's like, all right, maybe you're right. And Angela says, it's going to look beautiful with my pearls. And Sam's like, oh, I can borrow your pearls? And the sales lady's ears perk up. She's like, oh, 7 millimeter or 8 millimeter? And Angela says 9. So now the lady wants to show her some matching shoes because she's thinking Angela's got deep pockets here. So as they're going to look at the shoes, they walk back by the mother and daughter. And the girl is now holding the dress to herself. And she's like, do you really think I can have it? I love it. And the mother's like, oh, of course. Like, I really want you to stand out at your prom. And they're standing literally 1.5 feet from Samantha as they say this. So, like, I don't know who they thought they were fooling that she wasn't going to hear that. But they don't respond as if Samantha's heard it. And then Samantha's responding as if she's just overheard something she shouldn't.
Right.
And they walk right past her and then go into the dressing room. So Sam just looks at Angela like, oh. Now, back at home... Tony is coming in the house. He's just, I guess, went and shot some hoops all by himself because he's got his workout clothes on, which are sweatpants and a t-shirt tucked in, or a collared shirt tucked in, or polo shirt. So he sees Angela and Samantha come in the door, and he's like, oh, I see MasterCard and Visa are back.
Classic Tony joke.
And Angela's like, oh, it's just 2 girls who ransacked the boutiques of the Upper East Side. But they bought the first dress they saw. That's what I don't understand.
Blue thing.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like that was the first store they went into. Tony asks Samantha, well, what did you get? She's like, a dress. And Angela's like, well, you can brag a little more. It was Princess Stephanie's dress, Fergie's shoes, and Liz Claiborne's pantyhose. So Tony's like, oh, gee, what are they going to wear? And he's very proud of
Again,
himself for that
classic
joke.
Tony.
Yes. So Sam tells Angela, I had a very nice day. Thank you. And she goes to go upstairs. And Angela's realizing that something's not right here. So she's like, what is wrong? Are you still thinking about the black dress? And Sam says, I really did like those bows.
She did.
Yeah, she did. That was the dress Samantha wanted. And I think that was the dress that Samantha... Obviously, it wasn't a money issue. So it wasn't like, we really can't afford that dress.
But
you need to look at these dresses. So I really do think that, she was making it too much about herself.
Exactly. And I do think this is a realistic scenario. I think a lot of...
Yeah.
Not a lot. I said a lot. I'm sure parents have done this before.
Right.
Where it's just like, no, this is much better. And
right.
Sometimes you just got to let it go.
Because Angela has this idea of what it's going to be in her head.
Right.
And so
no,
that's
I know.
What she's trying to
live because she...
Right.
Well, we don't want to spoil it.
Fine. We don't want to spoil this 35-year-old episode. So Angela says, but trust me, I'm right about this one. And then she shows the dress to Tony. She's like, give me an honest opinion. Is this not the most stunning dress? And again, me as an 11-year-old, I was like, yes, I like that dress a lot.
Really? Yeah.
Black bows. No, I don't like the other dress. It looks like too plain for prom. But I think I wasn't a teenager yet, so I didn't really get it. And Tony's like, well, okay, just tell me where does the neckline come to? And Angela says, just below the neck. Tony's like, I love it.
Tony's
it's
all
beautiful.
right with that.
Yeah. He said, if I would have had to pick out a dress, this is the one I would have gotten, except with longer sleeves. Okay, thanks, Tony.
It's longer. Got to cover the arms too.
Right, cover everything. So Angela tells Sam, you're just having prom anxiety. Oh, no, Tony says, you're just having prom anxiety. We all get it. And Angela says to him, you got it too? And he is like, well, no, but my date's parents did.
Oh, God.
Of course.
Now, Tony was out there at prom doing what he doesn't want his daughter to do.
Just deflowering.
And he's proud of it.
Deflowering virgins everywhere.
Oh, God.
So the doorbell rings and he opens it up and there's Jessie. So he's like, oh, hey, Jessie. So Angela suddenly hides. She's like, oh, Jessie. And she hides the dress and then goes and shoves it in the cabinet by the fireplace.
So
but it's
ridiculous.
not a wedding, Angela.
I know, but she's all worked up.
Yeah. She's like, it's bad luck to see the prom dress before prom.
Probably not.
And Sam's like, she's really into this. So Jessie says, well, is it okay if I show you what I'm going to wear? And he holds up a brown paper bag.
I know, and it's like, okay, what's in the bag?
I know. Angela's like, oh, formal wear in a brown paper bag. How nice. So he pulls out a jacket and he puts it on. And he's like, you're going to love this. And it is... So what would you call this kind of jacket? It has tails.
It's the tail tuxedo.
Oh, okay.
I
wasn't sure if it had another name.
Black tail tuxedo, I think.
And Angela looks horrified. Sam's like, whoa, hot. And then
Hot.
Tony's like 110 in the shade, and he acts like he's getting burned. And Angela thinks this has to be a joke. So she says, Jessie, you're such a card. That word's back again. We've heard that before on this show.
You're such a card.
As if you'd actually go to the prom wearing something that belonged to a funeral director. And Jessie says, well, I am. And it actually did. So he's quite
funny.
proud of himself.
He's proud of himself, yeah.
Tony says, oh, that's why it has a hint of formaldehyde smell. And he's like, yeah, I got it at the Salvation Army. I like my money to go to a good place. He said, the guy wanted $3, but I insisted he'd take $5.
That's nice of him.
Yes. And then Angela's like, oh, well, I hope he threw in some pants with that too then. And he's like, oh, no, I'm just going to be wearing these jeans. But I'll pick up the formal look with my black high tops.
Angela's dying inside.
This is a horror show to her. She doesn't know what to do now. She's like, black high top sneakers? And Tony's like, no, pumps, Angela.
Pumps.
So now Angela's getting involved here, and she's like, I don't want to be unhip, but I just really think that this is a mistake here. And Tony said, now Tony, who normally would get involved in everything, suddenly is very laid back, and it's like, let the kids do what they want to do.
Right. Yeah, true. Yeah. That's true.
So he says to Angela, let's go talk in the kitchen. So he excuses them, and they go into the kitchen.
Doesn't he know the kids wanting to do what they want to do means that she's not wearing sleeves?
Right. Right. And she's going to pull that neckline down a little bit as soon as she leaves the house. As soon as Angela and Tony leave the living room, Jesse says, Mrs. Bauer's nice, but she's got some weird ideas about fashion. And he's like, I bet she wants you to wear a fluffy pink thing. And Sam's like, no, blue.
Yeah, that's funny.
So in the kitchen, Tony's telling Angela, can you just let the kids be themselves? Like, let them express themselves in their own way. And Angela says, that sounds like you are asking me to butt out. He says, if the butt fits.
It just doesn't make sense to me. If the butt fits.
I know, but it's a very Tony joke.
I know, it is. It absolutely is.
And he just wanted to be able to say the word butt.
Probably.
Yeah. Angela says to him, do you understand what's happening here? Tony's like, yeah, I mean, an undertaker croaked so that Jesse could look cool at the prom. He says it's the cycle of life.
Yeah, I don't think that's not at all what is happening.
No.
I don't think he understands at all.
Angela says that Jesse is imposing his will on Samantha. Sam's gone through a lot of trouble to pick out the perfect outfit. Actually, Angela, you picked out that outfit.
Well, yeah, actually, and I take that back. I think Tony kind of does know what's going on. He's actually absolutely right. Kids, he picked out an outfit.
Yeah.
And she picked out her outfit and knows that, you know what I mean, she's going to look nice in her own way.
Right.
And they're going to be very happy, but
Yeah.
Angela it has to be like Cinderella.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Angela wants this to be the best prom ever, over the top. Angela says, men are always doing this. And Tony says, wait a minute, when did I ever impose my will on you? Well, first of all, you two aren't a couple.
Right.
Except actually you are.
Yeah.
And Angela says, the other night, you made spaghetti and you wouldn't let me put ketchup on it.
Yeah, because they're not in college.
Right.
Well, I mean, what... Ketchup on your spaghetti.
Why? Why would she do that? Even for Angela, that's weird. And he's like, I wasn't imposing my will. I was just following the laws of life.
And the universe, he says.
Universe.
And that's absolutely right.
It is,
I
yeah.
I don't want that.
I agree with that. I mean, she's not Elf, so you don't put maple syrup on spaghetti or anything else besides pasta sauce. Maybe some butter and olive oil.
Yeah, right.
Alfredo sauce. Now I want pasta. So
Right,
Jesse...
why are we getting into this?
Jesse comes in right then. And he asks Tony, may I have the keys to your van? Because I really like to wash it for tonight. Man, a lot of stuff has happened this same day as prom.
Yeah, that's true.
They found the dress.
Yeah.
Now Jesse plans on going and washing an entire van.
Yeah.
How many hours were in this day?
I don't know.
It's a
good
very
point.
long day. Angela says, Jesse, you won't be needing these, because Tony goes to throw him the keys, but Angela takes them.
Well, he cracks that dumb joke about the van.
Right, yes. Don't scrub too hard.
I don't want to lose that last paint flick.
Angela says...
The van's running out of paint.
It is, actually. I mean, we've seen... The last time we saw this van, it doesn't look good at all. I'm surprised that Angela even allows it to be parked. That's why he has covered parking in the episode before.
Yeah,
housekeepers, because she doesn't want anyone to see that hideous van.
I know, and think about that. Like, and we're going on almost 5 seasons, so that's 5 years.
Yeah.
That he's lived here with that van.
Yeah.
And who knows how long he had it before then.
Angela tells them that she rented them a limo. And Samantha's excited about this one. You can see it on her face. So now this only amps Angela up for the fact that Jesse is imposing his will, because Jesse is like, oh, that's not really our style.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, okay. And then Tony's like, okay, I mean, stop butting in. And Angela says, I don't want Sam to be shortchanged. So Tony says, Angela, do we need to confab again? Which just means talk.
Right.
But I feel like they might be we're going to have to keep track of this. Because since the matriculator, I wonder if they're going to start peppering in some larger words for Tony. Because he's, gearing up to go back to college and is like probably trying to study or...
Right. I mean,
at
this point he is going...
No, he doesn't
okay.
actually... His first day is going to be later.
Oh,
because he applied,
right.
but it's like going to be summer, and then he starts in the fall, I think. They'll have his first day of school.
I see.
We haven't gotten there yet.
So I also think in this scene, though, she is a little aggravated with Jesse because he says, well, that's not our style.
Samantha or Angela?
Samantha.
Yes, I
because
agree.
it's now everyone is dictating
Right.
what Samantha feels.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
I'm the only one that discovered that. But no, I'm just saying as I'm realizing.
Right. Yes, because Angela kind of was imposing her will on what dress she wanted Samantha to wear.
Right.
And now Samantha is excited about the idea of a limo, and Jesse's like, nah, we don't do that.
Not our style.
So
I guess Tony's the only one who he seems the coolest of.
I know, which is unusual for Tony,
Right,
because
exactly.
normally I feel like he would maybe be butting in some other way. He just wants Samantha to come home a virgin from this night. That's really all he's hoping for out of this. Angela says, it's happening again. Jesse is imposing his will on Samantha. Tony says, no, he's not, and I want you to stop. She's like, you're doing it to me. Mm-hmm. She says, call me crazy, but I think Sam deserves the perfect prom with the perfect dress and the perfect transportation.
And, it's like Angela means well.
She does. She means well. But she's making this about herself. She's made this whole day about herself instead of about Sam.
Yep.
Because we're going to find out she's trying to fill a void.
Yep.
Tony says, they just need to do it their way. Like, let them have their prom and do it their way. And they're still arguing, and it's getting heated. And then finally Samantha speaks up and says, does anyone care what I want out of all of this?
Oh, boy.
And she says, I want to forget about the dress, the suit, the limo, and the prom. I don't want to go.
Wow, that's all terrible.
Yeah, and Angela's like, you can't mean that. And she's like, I do. I don't feel like going out tonight. So she tells Jesse that she's not going. And Jesse says, after I spent $5 on a tuxedo.
I know. He's putting it in perspective. Oh, my gosh.
So now okay, you don't have this part. There's a scene now where Angela comes down the stairs. And Tony says to her, I take it you struck out. It's later that night.
Oh, I see.
And she's like, I didn't even get up to bat. I went up to apologize, and she wouldn't even let me in her room. And Tony's like, oh, no. And she's like, but she was incredibly polite about it. And he's like, oh, no, she was being polite? That's even worse. Now, I think this is... One, I feel like Sam is kind of mean to Angela here. But... Two, I feel like we've now reached a point where Samantha is treating her like she would treat her mother.
Oh, right. That's a good point.
Because, like, a girl would be that mean or that upset with her own mother. I feel like if she wasn't that comfortable with Angela at this point, she would still be kind of tiptoeing around being upset with her. Wow, the cats are playing.
Something terrible has happened.
So Tony's like, all right, let me go in there. We speak the same language. So he goes upstairs, and then they do a little flip of the screen to know that time passed, and he comes back downstairs.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And he's like, nope, she's not talking to me either. So Angela says, that's it. I got to go. So she says, I'm going out to clear my head. And just then Mona comes in from working out. And Mona's like, what a workout. My endorphins are jumping for joy. Isn't life great? And Angela says, stuff it, mother.
Yeah.
Now, first I was like, this is weird. Like, why is Mona just showing up and saying all of that? But then I forgot that this is actually a very important part.
Right. That's interesting because with the version I have that Tony just is standing there and Angela's really frustrated. Like, we don't know that Tony went upstairs.
Right,
yeah. Stupid.
We just figured that that's her frustration from the kitchen.
Out,
but I do feel like them having this scene kind of builds that, like now they've both tried to go talk to her and they're not getting anywhere.
Right.
So Angela storms out and Mona says, why are her pants in a bunch? And Tony fills her in on the fact that Samantha has called off going to the prom. And that now Angela is very sad.
Yeah.
So Tony's theory for Mona is that, Angela had such a fantastic prom because earlier we found out that she stayed out all night long. So Angela had such a fantastic prom that now she is determined to make sure that Samantha has the exact same experience. Mona says, that's an interesting theory, but dead wrong. Do you really think that our little Angela went to the prom? And Tony's like, you know what? It did sound strange, but I went with it. So Mona starts to tell him this story. Angela had a very humiliating experience, and she swore her mother to absolute secrecy. But what do we know about Mona and secrecy? There's no such thing.
That's right.
You tell Mona something, you might as well tell the entire neighborhood.
Yep.
Tony says, I'm all ears. And Mona says, so was her date.
No.
Kenny Bigelow.
Yeah, poor Kenny Bigelow.
She said when the wind blew, he went airborne. So apparently Kenny Bigelow had very large ears. But Angela didn't care. She thought he was great, and she wanted to go to prom with him. So she was all dressed and ready to go when Kenny called and said that he was sick. And then Tony says, earache? Mona says, no, the flu. But that didn't stop Angela. She was determined to go to this prom. So she got dressed up instead, and she went. But when she got there, she couldn't bring herself in to walk in alone. So instead, she stood outside with her nose pressed to the window. You know, we can picture this with Angela,
Oh, yeah,
too.
absolutely. Absolutely.
With her nose pressed to the window. And she was having a pretty good time watching everyone else until she saw a giant pair of ears jitterbug by.
Jitterbug by.
Kenny Bigelow got a date with a cheerleader. And so that's why he actually told Angela that he was sick. And then Tony's like, wait a minute. Why would a cheerleader want to go out with a guy like Kenny Bigelow? And Mona says, well, you know what they say about guys with big ears.
I know.
And Tony's like, oh,
just...
man.
All right, he's like,
I walked right into
it. Set me up for that one.
And she's like, what? That they have big hearts.
No. Right. Oh, right.
There really is no penis correlation between ears, right? It's always like hands and feet.
Yeah.
I've never heard of ears, but...
I just think Mona was trying to make
a
funny.
Yes, it's just Mona being Mona.
Yeah.
So Tony's like, oh, man, poor Angela. Like, that must have really hurt. And he said, this explains why she's been acting so weird. And Mona's like, well, this explains this week.
Yeah. Been going on for a while, I guess.
So Tony's idea is that maybe if he goes upstairs and tells Sam about this story, then she would be more understanding of Angela being so overbearing in this situation. But Mona says, no, you cannot go up there because she would die if she knew. She was so upset when she caught me reading it in her diary.
That'll do it.
So Angela never actually told Mona this story. She found her diary, read it, and then Angela caught her, so then now Angela knew that she knew the story. But Mona says she broke into Angela's diary because she was worried about her social development. She never talked much as a child. Probably because her mother was horrible to her.
Yeah, really.
She didn't feel safe, Mona. So a little later in this extremely long day, Angela comes in again, and she says to Tony...
How was she able to shop?
Oh, how is Sam doing? And he says
know.
she's still incredibly polite. Then he says, where have you been? And she says, I was shopping for Sam. And he's like, come on, haven't we learned anything from what happened earlier? But she's like, you don't understand. I went to the city to hunt down the dress that Samantha really wanted. And Tony's like, oh. And she's like, it's quite a story. And he doesn't want to hear the story. So he's like, well, maybe you should bring it right up to her and tell her. But she wants to tell him. So she says, first I went to all the department stores and the boutiques and nothing. Then I drove down to the garment district and I see a rack being loaded onto a truck. She said I yelled at the guy to stop, but he took off. So she followed him, and she said it was just like the French Connection, except that she obeyed all the traffic laws. So she forced him off the road somewhere around Hoboken. So that means she went to New Jersey.
Right.
And then she got the dress. So she runs right upstairs to give it to Samantha. She knocks on Samantha's door, and again, Samantha is not answering the door. Angela says, Sam, I know you're angry with me, and I don't blame you because I got a little carried away, but if you would just let me apologize and, please let me come in. And then she's like, okay, I went more than a little overboard, and I'm sorry. And then she's like, please don't do this to me. And she's getting nothing from the other end of the door. But then Sam comes up behind her, and she says, excuse me, and pushes past Angela and then walks into her room. So she's really treating Angela like a mom here because she can't forget that Angela is the person who owns the room that she's pushing past her to get into, And
right, that's true.
And that is the case with parents also, but kids don't care because they just know you love them and that, they can kind of be brattier with you than they can with other people. So I feel like Sam is very comfortable with Angela at this point, which is cute. It's
right.
Cute even though she's being horrible right now. But I mean, I understand that she's upset, but it's not like she's not saying, you hurt me and crying or anything. She's just kind of being cold and mean to Angela. So Angela comes in and she's like, I just made a whole heartfelt apology to your doorknob. But she says, I feel terrible and I went out and I got you something. And so she gives it to her and even Samantha says to her, don't you think you've done enough already? And she's like, I know, I just want you to have the prom that you want to have, and I don't want it to, I don't want what I did to get in the way of that. So she mentions that she called Jesse, and Samantha's like, oh, you're doing it again, like you're getting involved in all of this. So she's like, okay, fine, I'm going to leave, I'm being too pushy, but here is this gift, and I just want you to understand that I don't want you to make a big mistake, because I made a mistake and I interfered too much. And then you're going to regret not going to your prom because of something that I did. Angela leaves, and you see Sam kind of peer into the bag as she's on her way out. So now we cut to downstairs on the day that never ends. And I think it's actually nighttime now,
The day
finally.
that never ends.
And Angela's sitting on the couch, like doodling on a notebook pad, but I don't know what she's doing. She's just making like broad circles. And she's not even looking at the paper. We're just supposed to know that Angela's very upset here. So Tony comes in and he's like, hi, how's it going? And he's like, you can't let this thing with Sam get you so down. You try to do what was best for her, and she just, she doesn't want to hear. Angela says, actually, I'm realizing now that I was actually doing what was best for me and not for Samantha. So she
Took
says...
her this long to figure it out?
I know.
God.
So she says, Tony, I need to tell you something, and it's very embarrassing. And she's, so can you please not tell anyone? And he's like, oh, of course not. I'll never tell anyone. She says, it was the night of my junior prom. And Tony goes, uh-oh.
He knows.
Because now he knows this story already.
Thanks to Mona, he knows this already.
Yeah. And she's like, what? He's like, nothing. She said, okay, anyway, I had this date with this terrific guy named Kenny Bigelow. I love when you get a story from both sides, from characters.
Right.
It's always so funny.
According to Mona, this guy was a dork.
Right. And according to Angela, he was terrific.
Total terrific.
Yeah. And Tony just has a look on his face because he's picturing Kenny Bigelow in his head.
Big old ears.
She said, doesn't that name just say it all? He says, yeah, I can picture them. I mean him. And Angela says, he got sick the night of the prom, last minute, and I just couldn't stand the thought of not wearing my beautiful dress, so I went to the prom anyway, and I watched through the window. She says the theme was Tahitian twilight, and it looked like a South Seas island with palm trees and fishing nets and conch shells. She says it was so romantic. She says she didn't even really mind being on the outside until she saw, and Tony says, Kenny Bigelow. She's like, oh, you're so intuitive. And he's taking it. He's like, yeah.
I know. Right, like.
She says he jitterbugged right past her, glued to a cheerleader. And Tony, I'm not going to tell you. I was very hurt. And she's like, it's not that often that a girl gets asked out by a guy like Kenny Bigelow. He was just so handsome, he looked like a movie star. And Tony says...
with big ears.
Yeah.
A movie star with big ears.
Well, Tony says, Dumbo. And then Angela says, okay, first of all, we don't know Kenny Bigelow. Sounds like he kind of was a jerk, but let's leave his ears alone.
Right.
And she's like, oh, you've been talking to Mother. And he's like, well, not as much as she's been talking to me.
Yeah.
So then she's like, I can't believe she told you everything. You probably even know about the mooning. And he's like, mooning? She did not say anything about that. So she's like, really? And he's like, no. So now he wants to hear this story.
Right, we gotta hear this.
So she's like, I was so mad that I threw up my crinoline in the air and I showed Kenny what I thought about him. And she does like a little motion like she's tossing her skirts up behind her. And then she sits down in the chair with her head down, like she's so embarrassed. But Tony says, oh man, I wish I could have seen that.
Right, seen the expression on his face.
Yeah, but Angela's like, yeah. And then he's like, oh, I mean the expression on his face.
Oh,
but
right.
Tony probably would have.
Right.
Yeah. And like
but I mean, like I was saying, earlier, I had said, I think Kenny won that night.
Right.
Not only did he have another date, but he got to see Angela's ass. So he's the big winner of the night.
I know, like I don't really know what that.
Like she's mooning him.
I feel like mooning doesn't have the same effect when it's done by a woman
does
as
like,
when
whoa,
it's done.
What's that? And a man does it. It's like, oh my God, put that away. Exactly. God. So I don't think she got him.
That's
I think
true.
he's like, man, I still got to see her butt.
Right.
And I'm
on a date with it.
Right.
Now, right then, Samantha comes down the stairs wearing the dress that she originally wanted in the first place, looking so adorable that I can't even take it.
It is a cute dress even now.
It is. Yeah, like I look at this dress and I think it's so cute.
Right.
I could see our 10-year-old is kind of like a little sporty like this, I could totally see her wanting to wear a dress like this
Yeah,
to
I think so. I think you're
prom
right.
instead of something all frilly, because she's not big into dresses as it is.
Right.
Tony sees her, and we get the best, Samantha, you're beautiful.
You're beautiful.
Here, just play it, please.
All right.
Samantha, you look beautiful.
You look beautiful.
I love that. People always make that like Samantha joke
Right.
about Tony.
But like there.
But it's just perfect. It's a Samantha and a beautiful.
I know, beautiful.
And she does look beautiful.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of looking at her, and Angela says, "Oh, does this mean that you're going to go to the prom?" And she's like, "Yeah, I called Jesse." So Angela's like, "Oh, I'm so excited for you. I'm so happy, and I have something to go with it." And then she's like, "My pearls, if you want them." And Sam's like, I do. So then Angela reaches in the writing desk by the bottom of the stairs, because that's apparently where she keeps her pearls. Her 9
Not in a
millimeter.
room. Not anywhere near her dresser
Right.
or
No,
in a
just
jewelry box.
Right
They're
there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess we could assume that maybe she had gotten them out because she knew Sam was going to wear them anyway.
Right.
But it's just funny that she just goes over to her writing
Yeah,
desk and
that's
pulls
it.
out some pearls. So then Samantha asks her if she will help her. And Sam did this hair by herself. It's very poofy. Like, she did a lot of work here.
Yeah, she was upstairs doing that while she was
was
hiding in her room.
Yeah, but she looks great. So Angela puts the pearls around her neck. And, she says, they look great. And Angela says, you were right all along. This dress is perfect. It's very you.
Right.
And Samantha says, and the pearls are you. And then she says
then
they
they
go
embrace.
great together. Yes, and then they hug. It's a great hug, too. Like, Samantha's, like, kind of rubbing Angela's back when she hugs her. It's very sweet. So we've definitely hit a point where these two are bonded way more than, just
But
as
they do have their disagreements, like a mother and a daughter.
Oh, yeah,
which
yeah,
is really
absolutely. But, I mean, like, they're bonded more than they were, I would say, 2 seasons ago, for sure. Like, we're seeing growth not only between her and Tony, but with her and Angela as well.
Right.
We could stand to see a little more growth between Tony and Jonathan, but they have, like, a, kind of cute buddy relationship.
Right. And then they have this touching moment, and then the doorbell rings?
Yeah.
And then Tony says, "Oh, baby." Like, what is he saying here?
No, he's just so
I know,
excited.
I know, but "oh, baby," or "oh, baby."
He can't contain himself.
I know. And then enters Jesse with his
Yeah.
tail tuxedo jacket, pants he was wearing earlier, and shirt he was. Do you
Right.
think he washed the van in these clothes?
I don't know. Who knows?
What point did he wash the van?
Yes, he washed. He probably
And
just.
she did her hair, and it was,
He would have
this
had
was
to
like
just take. It's a very
48-hour
long day.
day.
I know, it really is a very long day. He had to have just taken the van through like the Chevron gas
I
station.
guess so. I
Did
don't
they
know.
have those back then?
He wouldn't have spent that. He spent $5 on a coat.
Oh, that's right. He washed that van by hand. You're
Yeah, he had
absolutely
to have.
right.
He had to have.
And he probably recycled the water. Jesse. He looks at Samantha and he's like, "Wow, you look great." And he's like, "Wow, wow."
Right.
Tony says, "One more wow and you're going to have an Italian chaperone."
I know.
Because again, that's all Tony's worried about with this evening.
But what did Tony say earlier? You look beautiful.
So Angela says, "Here's a van." She gives them the keys to the van, and Tony's like, "All right, come on, you kids." Now, what is Tony missing here that is very unlike Tony? He didn't take any pictures.
Oh, yeah.
The 2 other times we've seen Samantha go to a dance.
All right.
He has been all about taking pictures. And now
That's a good
she's going to prom. There needed to be a part at the end where he's like, "Oh, damn it, I forgot to take pictures."
Yeah.
Which is what sometimes happens when you do really forget to take pictures.
No, but he would have actually had to go get a camera.
Right. Upstairs, look for the camera,
Right.
bring
no,
it down.
No
Yeah.
pulling your phone out of your pocket
Exactly.
and taking pictures.
Nope. So he's like, "Okay, we'll have a great time." And then on the way out the door, Samantha says to Angela, "By the way, Angela, how did you find this dress?"
Right.
And Angela's ready to tell her the story, but again, she's going to make this about Samantha now and not herself. And she just says, "It was a breeze." And so they leave.
Right. Doesn't matter.
No, not at all. So she's like, "Okay." And he's like, "Be careful, drive carefully, and be home by dawn." And then he starts crying because he can't believe that they're going to be home at dawn. And Angela's trying to comfort him.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, now hidden in the tag of this episode is one of the most romantic things ever on this show.
Oh, really?
Yes. And were you not paying attention when we watched? And
Oh, no, it is. I'm sorry. Yes, I just had to think about what it was.
and I've mentioned before that there was a point in this series where I thought it was the actual last possible moment where
Before.
it made sense for them to be together. You know, like it no longer makes sense for them not to be dating after this.
Right.
I think personally.
Okay.
It's later that evening, so Samantha's at the prom. Who knows where Jonathan is? He didn't get to be in this episode past the first 3 minutes.
I know. That's right. I forgot he was. I forgot he existed.
And you see Tony leading Angela down the stairs. Now, if you watch carefully, she's coming down the stairs. She's wearing bunny slippers, and they're super cute.
Oh, that's awesome.
So she's wearing like her little pink bathrobe and her pajamas. He's still dressed, but she must have been getting ready for bed. So he's leading her down the stairs he's got his hand over her eye so she can't see. So he has a surprise for her. So he gets her to the bottom of the stairs and then he's like, okay, you ready? And then he says, open sesame. She opens her eyes and he has transformed their living room into a Tahitian twilight prom.
And he worked very hard.
How long was this day? Where did he find these palm trees?
Palm trees. They cut them out of cardboard and paint them green and stand them up somehow and cut out more cardboard coconuts and paint those with detail.
I mean,
No way.
Yes, the whole living room is decked out.
Yeah.
And Angela's like, what? And he says, Angela Bauer, this is your prom. He says it's called Tahitian Twilight II. And she says, you are so sweet. Okay, is a guy going to do this for a woman that he is not in love with?
No.
Right? Exactly.
Especially not his employer.
Exactly. Like, this has to be the most romantic thing that a man has ever done for Angela her entire life.
Yeah, probably.
So it's just so crazy that, like, he makes this grand gesture that's probably the most romantic thing that's ever happened to her, and then they just keep going on with their life as if they're just still...
Well, yeah.
Because they had to keep them apart because of this show. Yeah. So I feel like I get the whole sexual tension and like wanting to keep that tension going, but I do think that you get to a certain point of the story where you're now compromising the integrity of the actual character relationship because you're trying to drag this out for so long.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, yeah.
Like, and when it hasn't really happened yet, but when we get into later seasons, you just kind of get exhausted with this whole will they, won't they? And then you're like, do these people even really like each other that much? Because why are they still not together?
Right, exactly.
Like, if you really love someone and are that attracted to them, you're going to be with that person at some point.
Right, even you can't be like, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, then I got to move out. I mean, like, they would know at this point.
Right.
Right.
And people make horrible decisions and destroy their own relationships and marriages because they fall in love with people. And these people are completely available and in front of each other.
And in the same house.
And they're still...
They're 30 feet apart from each other when they sleep at night.
So, and I just love that this part is like so just tucked into the end of this episode, but it really is such a significant moment, I think, for these two characters.
Yeah, that's true.
So then he's like, okay, cue up the band, and he starts a little tape player, and he starts a song. I can't remember what the song is. Ain't Nothing But the Real Thing, I think. It's a song that would have been played at Angela's prom. And she's all like, oh, that's so cute. And so he says, well, Kenny's not here, so will you dance with me? And so they start dancing. And then he says, you know, Angela, this really is like your first prom. And she's like, really? What do you mean? And he says, look out the window. It's a full moon. And that's the end of the episode. They had to add that little tiny bit of humor to break the fact that this was a very romantic scene.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so that is the end of the episode. Okay. But
that's why this is called Prom Night II, right?
Right, because...
Okay, I wanted to make sure. Sorry, did we already discuss that?
No, but yes. But it's kind of like Angela was trying to relive her prom through Samantha.
Well, that's what I thought it was originally, but now I realize there actually is another prom night.
Yes, he actually does recreate her prom.
No, I mean, I knew it was happening, but I just realized it.
Prom Night II.
Oh, and the fact that he says it's Tahitian Twilight II.
Yes, right, exactly.
So it's really Prom Night II.
Do you remember who went first with Boss? I think I did. So, I mean, I'm sorry, with rating. So I think you go first with rating.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't even know, honestly.
I don't either.
Okay.
And we've been actually doing these more frequently.
I know, every night.
And
Yeah.
We don't know. This episode I gave a 7.5
Nice.
because I thought it was a solid episode. Mm-hmm. It was good. It had the usual. It had a that Samantha gets angry moment, which we see every once in a while. I think where she gets an angry teenager kind of. Parents are trying to run my life,
right?
And then we had the moments of Angela trying to be a mother to her, and Samantha not understanding it, or not understanding it, but actually really more Angela not understanding it, kind of being out of touch of what Samantha actually wants.
Right.
So again, more of those mother-daughter moments, but Tony kept us cool the whole time, which was
surprising.
Which is unlike Tony.
I know.
Well, you let them do what they want.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, overall it's a good episode. Now, obviously, a good Tony and Angela moment at the end,
right?
Which grows the relationship, and then we sit here and watch it for another 4 seasons. But yeah, overall, very good episode.
I gave it an 8.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Because for many of the same reasons, it was great character development for Angela and Samantha. It has, probably one of the top 10 romantic scenes between Angela and Tony. And it was just kind of they were a cute little family in this episode. I loved it as a kid. Of course, I already said about how I kind of liked the other dress better at the time.
All right.
But again, just because it was a Sam episode, I remember loving it as a kid, and I still really liked it today.
Okay. And one more thing.
Yeah.
I know we've already talked about this set and all the things that Tony did, but you really, if you watch this episode, you really need to pay attention. There's some light hanging in the background that he lit.
A lantern.
And then I don't know what all this other, he has lays everywhere
I
and
know.
candles. And
yes.
Where did he have all this stuff?
I don't know. Who knows? I think he's got champagne.
I'm sitting
He's
here
got
staring at it,
champagne
and I
out
just
with
had to
champagne
mention,
flutes. How was there? Okay, wait a minute.
How was there no intercourse going on?
Exactly.
Champagne's a flowing.
Sam's
She's
not
in a
coming
robe.
home. Who the hell knows where Jonathan is?
Right, yeah, right. Jonathan's in bed.
Mona's probably having
Mona's
sex with
room.
someone somewhere else, anywhere. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really feel
I don't know. This is bizarre. Anyway, all right.
It was prime for Pound Town in the living room.
It was.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. Okay. So
Anyway.
Okay, we're done with it. Okay.
Who's the boss around here? Me? Or my mother? Or maybe it's you?
Just our child asking who the boss is after that
I know.
conversation
After you
before.
said Pound Town.
Okay, so I went with Samantha as the boss. And now that I'm saying this, I think I did boss first last time. But it doesn't matter. But
sorry.
I picked Samantha as the boss because she knew what she wanted to begin with. Then she kind of just called off the prom when she realized that this wasn't going to be worth her time. And she kind of stayed firm until Angela figured it out. And then she got to have the prom that she wanted to. She stood up for herself in the kitchen and was like, does anyone care what I actually want here? So yeah, I went with Sam.
All right. I mean, you make good points. I mean, I actually agree with you, but I'm gonna stick with my original. Original boss. I mean, I agree with you now, hearing your points, but I'm gonna go. I went with Tony. I thought that Tony kept his cool the whole time. He was just let them do what they want, and he tried to keep it and he tried to.
That's a good point.
He tried to come up with a happy medium between the two of them, or kind of help with that. But Angela was insistent on this dress and insistent on renting the limo and this, that, and the other. And again, the whole time he was unlike Tony. He was let them do what they want, this, that, and the other. And then he even tried to go up and talk to Samantha after the whole incident happened with no luck, and came down the stairs.
I could see that.
So anyway, I thought Tony was the boss.
Okay, so one other thing I like about this episode that shows how they've kind of moved on from to be more of a family unit is how if your kid is with somebody else, and then your kid does something rude or something, you apologize, I'm so sorry.
Right.
he's no longer apologizing for Sam's behavior here.
Right.
Like, Sam was mean to Angela, and he's like, oh, yeah, that happens.
That's the way it goes.
That's how it works, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, Jonathan shit his pants last Tuesday. I dealt with that, so you can deal with this.
Right, shit his pants. Pretty much.
So, yeah, I just like that they're just no longer, like, he's not apologizing for Samantha's bad behavior at this point. Okay, so you can reach us at Who's the Boss Podcast on Instagram, or the Who's the Boss Pod 1 on Twitter, or Who's the Boss Podcast on Facebook. Or go to anchor.fm/WTB podcast, and there you can leave us a voice message. So if you're listening to this in real time, we're not going to be back now for a couple of weeks. But if you're listening to this in the year 2027, then just continue on with the next episode. Nice. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
All right. Bye.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give a big thumbs up and tell all your friends. And maybe you can tell your grandma, your mother, and your sister or brother. Maybe you have no siblings. Tell your dog and cats. Bye.